wanted to show you a few tricks for making a perspective for a two-point bedroom. One of the things you might have noticed is that the perspective is set to be the outside of the building. But if we're inside the room, we might want to move those walls back a bit so we can see inside the room. Okay, we'll take a look at that right now. So let's go. Here I have picked the two-point minimalist bedroom, and I embedded it. That's why there's no X on it. And I scaled it 50%. So it has some space around it and everything. Before I even start my perspective grid, I'm going to make lines. Now, what are the lines going to look like? I'm going to draw a line along the ceiling and along the floor, and they're going to meet somewhere over here. And I made them blue because they're the blue grid. So if you just follow, here, let me turn them off for a second, the strong lines you see for the ceiling and the floor. You can also try the pictures. They should work. They should get you the same place too, the tops of these, if it's drawn well in perspective. So here's our blue lines. Now, let me turn them off for a second, and we'll look at the right grid, which is the orange grid by default. And if we draw a line along the top of the ceiling and the bottom of the floor, it'll end somewhere out here. So I did that. Here they are. So those are my lines for the right grid, the orange grid, and here are my lines for the blue grid. Now it's time to set up my perspective. So I'm just going to go to the perspective grid and pick the regular two-point perspective, 2P normal view. And as you can see, these lines are going to give me a very good hint as to what I have. So I'll click the perspective grid tool so I can see where the vanishing points are. I'm going to zoom out a little bit with Command minus so that I can see where my vanishing points are supposed to be. Here's one, here's another. Here's the ones that came with the grid. Now I'm going to raise them a little bit. So the way to raise them, I have to zoom out even more, is to drag the diamonds up so that my horizon, the green line you see there, goes right through where those two orange ones hit. And they also, look, they also go through the blue ones. So this means I don't have to, I can really use this picture probably fairly well to create my perspective. It's a good one. It's a good perspective. The person who drew this knew what they were doing. Now it's time to move the two vanishing points where those lines cross. So here's the first vanishing point. I'll just move it over and it goes right there. And then my other vanishing point, I'll move it over in between my other two lines, my two blue lines. So this is the blue grid. And now I don't need my lines anymore, so I'll just hide them. And that is my perspective. If I wanted to draw on those back walls, it would work like a charm. So let me show you. So I'm going to do the blue wall first, but then I'm going to show you a nicer way to do it. Okay, so you can get the rectangle, you can go to your blue wall and draw whatever color I happen to have so that it ends with the bottom of the floor. Whoops, the bottom of the floor looks like it's right about there. And it goes into perspective. Now, with a little luck, my other floor should go into. So guess what? I'll make this color a blue. And then I'll pick the right grid, and I'll start at the intersect or where it says anchor and draw the other direction and stay on my page, just on my page. And I need to go up a tiny bit because I'm seeing that there, that's perfect. So that's my orange wall. You might think this was a blue wall, but remember the orange wall is parallel to the orange outside. Now I'll show you another way that you might like to do this. Not everybody likes to do this, but I find that it's more fun to have my room open instead of having the perspective grid in front of it like this. So I'm actually going to get rid of those two walls so that we can draw them again after I readjust my grid. So now I'll click on the perspective grid tool and I'll show you the little trick. You see these three charcoal handles underneath the grid. I believe the bottom one might adjust the height of the grid. I think it's fine where it is. This one looks like it's attached to the orange grid, so I believe if I keep moving it back, I will be able to put it against the wall back here. And I'm going to try to line it up with the bottom of the wall. There we go. I know it went out very far, but I'm only going to see the part on the picture. And it doesn't show me the top of the wall, but hey, I could maybe make it do that. There are some other things you can move around. However, let's open up the other side, the blue side. So I'm going to move my blue wall back, so that it lines up, whoops, so stop moving, right at the bottom of the blue wall. I'd like both of these walls to come a little closer. Actually, there's one more special diamond on the grid that will make the two grids meet. And what you need is to have bigger squares. So you see this diamond here sitting up in the middle of the air? If I move it up in the air, look, it's making my squares a little larger, so they will meet at the edge there, which is very nice. So anyway, I've got my walls. I don't know if you like this better. It works the same way as the other one, but instead of sitting in front of everything, it gives you a better view. So up to you if you decide you like it. Okay, let me put some walls on just for fun. So here we go. With the blue wall selected and the rectangle tool, I will start right in the middle and draw along the floor and to the edge of my template, trying to make sure I see where the line is that I was using. That looks good. And just for fun, I'm making it blue, just so we know which wall is which. But I'll show you another picture where I've actually got some spot colors on. Let's try the other wall. Now, do you find this nicer? I don't know. I mean, it works the other way. It also works this way. So I'm going to start at the anchor point and move this one to the edge of the drawing, not the edge of the paper, and make sure it matches at the bottom as well as I can. And this is my orange wall. Okay, now, so what I like about this is it's more dégagé, more spread out. Of course, you're not going to want to have your walls on all the time when you're trying to draw stuff that's in front of them, because we just covered up the bed. But at least we know they drew in perspective. Okay, so here's a trick about the floors. First of all, the floor is so big that you need a huge rectangle, and you may not even be able to draw it on your artboard in one piece. I had to piece a couple together, maybe because of my laptop, I'm not sure why, but I'll show you a little trick that you can use if you want a simple floor. So I'm going to go to no active grid. So the little trick with no active grid is to put the floor, like all floors, under the walls. This doesn't work for a checkerboard floor, which has to be one piece, and it doesn't work that well for the wood scribble, but I'll show you how I tried it. However, it's great if you want to put planks on your floor. So let me just show you the little trick, which is just to get a rectangle with no active grid and a nice brown color and draw it on the floor layer. I'll lock the walls. Make sure it's high enough so that it doesn't leak, and I'm going to go right on the path. So if it's a solid color, you can just put it like this. If you want to give it a gradient, you can change the angle of the gradient to try to reflect the light coming in the window. I'll show you an example of that. So that's a lot easier than trying to put the floor into perspective, which sometimes doesn't work well. You can experiment. Maybe it will work better on your computer. I had a lot of trouble with it. However, there is something very cool on the floor, and I wanted to show you my trick for that. It's a rug. So let me show you how I would make the rug. This is where your wonderful patterns come in. Maybe you have a pattern you can actually use. You can use some of the patterns that come with Illustrator, but I get a better result with my own patterns. However, here's the trick with the pattern. You need to have a pretty big pattern. So here was my plaid demo from last time, and it has a pretty big pattern, and I'm just going to copy it and paste it in here on the rug layer. And I can hide my walls temporarily. I don't need them. Now, remember what we have to do with the bricks. We're going to have to expand it. So the first thing we do is expand it, but I expand the fill because it doesn't have a stroke. If it had one, you could expand that too. And now with reactivate your perspective, get the perspective selection tool, and you're going to press 2 for the floor grid or the horizontal grid as you kind of move it in place. And you see how small it's getting? It gets a lot smaller. So here's my rug. That's why I mean to put a whole floor in, you need the hugest rectangle ever. So let me just let go of this floor. Let go of the mouse first, and now it's on the grid. So I can decide how much rug I want. They had a very tiny rug in the picture. Now, let me show you a few floors that I did before with some nicer colored walls. All right, here are some ideas. First of all, there's my rug. I made some holes in the window so you could see the light, but let me turn off my wood grain because it was really hard to do and I'm not sure it was that effective. And let me go to my trim view. So a little bit bigger. Okay, so I decided I would make planks in perspective, which was super easy to draw. I used rectangles. Try to make them pretty big because they get very small, like the railroad slats as they go far away. So here I was with just a nice color floor. And this floor has absolutely no perspective, but I gave it a little bit of a gradient so that it would look like the light came in through the windows. And finally, I did try putting a wood grain on. And that's this one. But I had to piece it together in a few separate pieces because I couldn't make a rectangle big enough for just one of them. However, it looks kind of nice. So you can decide, do you like the wood grain look? If it's worth it to go through all the work? Do you like a gradient that gives you a bit of sunlight? Or do you just want a solid floor with the planks? I do recommend doing the planks. Here it is without the planks. Without the planks, it doesn't look as much like a floor. And of course, I cut holes through the windows, which I'm going to make frames for and everything. But do you remember your view? The horizon should go, when you make your view, around the bottom third of the window or so. That's where the horizon will be. So you'll need a picture with a lot of sky and a little bit of water or something if you're going to have a view like that. Okay, so hopefully these ideas help, and you can decide how you want to do it. Oh, let me show you the wood grain without the planks. Okay, and without the perspective. So I thought the planks helped, especially since I had to piece together these three separate pieces to make them. So I thought the planks made it look nicer. But I'm not sure if it's my favorite floor or not. I like the others too, and they were a lot easier. Well, I hope you enjoyed it, and good luck with your perspective. Let me know if you need help. Bye.